Yo, what's going on guys? Ian77 here. Today's video is going to be a 50,000 subscriber special Hog EQ guide. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy. Alright, so hopping in the first match here, we're going to be facing this guy. And I think some of my matches will be on top ladder, but some of the matches will probably also be on my alternate ladder account, because we are pretty high up on ladder right now, so I don't even know if we'll be able to do that many games before we hit number 1 in the world, so kind of just have to work with what we have here, but should be fine here. And we're going to be kind of going over each matchup here with Hog EQ, or at least the main meta deck matchups, but I'm not really sure what these guys are playing yet until I kind of identify their main cards, but there should be a thing on the screen. Like if you tap on the screen, you should be able to like see the timestamps for all the matchups, so if you're just like looking for a couple in specific, you can just check out that part and you should be able to find exactly what you're looking for. And you guys can probably save this video as well if you like, just for the kind of like future reference. Whenever you're kind of stuck on something, you can always come back to this video. And I'm actually pretty sure this guy's a Sparky player, so looks like the first match will be against Sparky. And against Sparky, it can be a bit tricky sometimes. You do want to be like a little bit passive early on, because they can definitely kind of cheese you in single elixir. Looks like he's going to go for a high Sparky there, but I was kind of ready for it with the Ice Spirit, so not going to be the best Sparky by him. And even though his pushes can be a bit hard to defend, it looks like the Sparky's going to be pretty far separated from the Giant, so it wasn't really able to get too much value here. And I think just an Ice Spirit should be enough to finish off his push here. And honestly, Ice Spirit's pretty nice in this deck too, so that you can always freeze the Sparkies. You kind of just want to not be too aggressive, but you want to be aggressive at the right times. Like right here, I knew that he would either have to take a Hog hit or some skeleton damage, since he only had a NATO to defend. But if you're too aggressive, sometimes they can just like ignore it and then just go with the Sparky, then you pretty much will lose your tower. But you have to be like aggressive sometimes, but just in a smart way. And you always want to cycle your Firecrackers as much as possible. Like whenever they go for a Sparky in the back, you always want to go with a Firecracker first, but it does kind of depend on the version of the Sparky deck, because sometimes against Goblin Giant Sparky, the Firecracker is a little bit worse, I feel like, because the Spear Goblins from the Goblin Giant will often kill it. But yeah, especially against Giant Sparky, it's always good to go with the Firecracker first as they go in with the Sparky in the back. And honestly, sometimes you can even wait until double elixir with this Hog deck when you're facing Sparky, but it does kind of depend on your cycle, because you don't really want to ever cycle like a Firecracker on nothing, or like a Valkyrie into nothing, otherwise they can just like Sparky into it and you're kind of dead. But yeah, looking pretty good here so far in this match. And honestly, even though normally it's good to go opposite lane with this Hog deck, it's actually not too bad to go same lane against Sparky, because you can always kind of like... Okay, unfortunately our Firecracker did die there, but you can always kind of like Earthquake the Sparkies when they play it behind the tower, and you can also kind of just like log them away and get like Firecracker splash and all of that stuff. So honestly, usually not too bad of an idea to go same lane if you have to. And he's actually going to get a ton of Queen damage there. The one harder part of this matchup is that he does have Queen, and he does have a lot of Hog counters as well, so even though he can defend pretty well, yeah, it's going to be pretty hard here. But he is going to Sparky same lane, so now we can just Earthquake it, as I was saying. We do actually have Drag Glitch on that Ice Spirit, unfortunately. But honestly, there's still a chance we win here. We kind of just need to stack our Firecracker, so going to go with one early here. He is going to Fireball it, but at least his Sparky is quite separated from the rest of his push, so I don't think it's actually going to do too much. And we're just going to get an Earthquake off, because I know that the game is kind of coming down to the wire now, so we're probably going to need to be pretty aggressive here to have a chance. And I'm going to barely defend his Sparky, but he is going to go for another one, and it is getting a little bit close here. We just have to Earthquake, even though it seems a bit aggressive with the Earthquakes. It is going to separate the Sparky from the Giant, so it's always really good to like kind of separate their push-up, so you know, the Sparky is a bit later than the Giant or whatever tank they have. That way it's like not really going to be shooting at your defensive troops as much while you're trying to counter their push. And I think this might be game here. Hog should get a hit, and Firecracker Splash should finish it off, so that's going to be a pretty nice win here. Alright, hopping in the next match here, we're actually going to be in a friendly battle against one of my good friends. This is actually Banya, and he is one of the best Golem players in the world right now, so I would have loved to do a ladder game facing Golem, but I actually couldn't find any even after hours of searching, because I feel like Golem is just so rare in top ladder right now, aside from like the couple Golem clone players and a couple others, but I just wasn't really able to face it, so just gonna do a friendly battle here. But this guy is very good, so I'm not really worried about it. And make sure to subscribe to his YouTube channel as well, because he does have one, and I'll probably link it in the description below. He's a very good player, and even though most people don't really like Golem, it is actually kind of interesting to watch sometimes to see how they play it, because it's not always as simple as it looks on the surface. And I think he is going to be using Golem Clone here. I just told him he can use any Golem deck he wants to, but he's going to choose the dirty version of Golem, I guess. But against Golem Clone, or just Golem in specific, you always want to cycle your Firecracker first as well. And I'm just going to cycle the Firecracker behind the King Tower there, because I know he doesn't have Lightning in this deck, but if he does have Lightning, it is better to go with the Firecracker in the corner of the arena, so they can't Lightning your Tesla and Firecracker. But should be fine here. Whenever they kill your first Firecracker, you always want to go with your second Firecracker in that position, because then the Tesla will kind of pull the units towards the center, and the Firecracker just like aligns with everything perfectly. So yeah, super clean defense right there, and already looking pretty good here since we got a bit of hog damage. But looks like he will activate the King Tower, so that is the one downside of running Firecracker, but still looking quite promising here. And I think we should be back to another Firecracker pretty soon already, so not really too worried here. And against Golem, you usually always want to save your Firecracker in your hand, unless they waste like a Night Witch or just give you some really good value to use something on it, to use it on. But yeah, you kind of want to save it, but he's going to waste his Night Witch there, and he will go with the Golem in the back, but I'm not too worried because his Night Witch is out of cycle, so he's probably not going to get a huge clone push off as he could have if he had saved that Night Witch. So I think we should be pretty okay here, and just gonna get another Firecracker down. The nice thing about Firecracker is that whenever they clone their stuff, the Firecracker will always just like splash all the clone units and instantly kill it. And actually, the Firecracker from the opposite lane is actually gonna be shooting at the Golem here, so gonna finish off all the cloned units super nicely. And Tesla gonna help out against the Baby Dragon, and probably just need a couple more attacks, and this might actually be GG right here. So honestly, a really clean win here. Always fun going against the Golem Clone with this deck, actually, unless they just starting hand you. So it is pretty similar against normal Golem decks. You kind of want to cycle more Firecrackers instead of worrying about cycling more Teslas. It's always better to have Firecrackers, and as long as you cycle quite a few of them, you should be pretty good on defense against Golem. Alright, hopping in the next match here, we're going to be facing Pandora, I think. I'm pretty sure this is his second account, so he's a really good player, so not really sure what he's going to be using here. He does have Cannon, it looks like, and I know he is quite a versatile player, so still not too sure what it could be, but it is going to be Cannon and Archer Queen, so it could be Royal Hogs or something. And by the way, guys, in this match we're actually going to be using the Queen version of Hog EQ, but it is honestly pretty similar to the Firecracker version, so I just wanted to share a couple games with the Queen version as well, just for a couple of you guys who prefer this version. But honestly, don't worry too much, because the matchups should be pretty much the same in their playstyle, so don't like worry about the tips being different or something. Looks like he's gonna have Heal Spirit as well here, so and Rocket too, so honestly really interesting. Not really sure what he's playing here. Could be like, I'm honestly not sure. I was thinking Xbow, but then Heal Spirit doesn't really make sense with Xbow, so just gonna go with the Hog Rider here and see what he uses against it. Looks like he does have Tornado as well, so honestly, I have no idea what this guy's playing, so I'm just going to Earthquake right here. I'm going to go with it in the opposite lane, because I'm not really sure what he's playing, but I feel like we might want to go opposite lane, judging by the few cards that he used so far. So you pretty much always want to go opposite lane with Hog EQ. The only time you want to go same lane is probably when you face a deck without like a big spell or something, and you just can stack your Queen in the same lane without them really being able to spell it down, because then your defense will just be so good because the lane will just be blocked up. And looks like it is going to be E-Giant here, so this guy is actually usually known for E-Giant, but I wasn't really expecting him to be playing it with like such strange cards. So yeah, honestly this matchup is actually even easier with Firecracker. Against E-Giant, you kind of just want to, so if you're playing the Firecracker version, you just want to go with like a Valkyrie in the back when they E-Giant, and then you want to set up a Firecracker, then like a really well-positioned Tesla after that. But even when you're playing Queen, it's still pretty similar. The only difference is that Queen is like a little bit worse because it's pretty bad against lightning, and they usually do run lightning, but I think this guy's just using rocket instead of lightning, but in general, you do usually expect that lightning. And looks like our Queen is actually going to lock right here on his tower, so already a ton of damage right away, but against E-Giant, don't be too aggressive with your Queens if you're running the Queen version, because they can always just E-Giant straight onto the Queen and counter it fully very easily and not really take any damage on their E-Giant, so you do want to be a little bit cautious. And this is going to set up an early bomb tower right here against this E-Giant, because I know he does have rocket, so even though normally they don't use rocket against buildings, I feel like sometimes they could go for a rocket on your bomb tower or whatever, or a Tesla or something, if you're using the Tesla version, so sometimes it is always good to set up the early building when you're facing E-Giant, whether it's the Firecracker version or the version with Queen. Both of them can be good to set up a double building with, especially when you get later into the game, like double or triple elixir. You always want to set up like 2 buildings in case they spell down the first one. And Queen should still get good value here. He is going to NATO it, but still going to deal some damage to the E-Giant, so not too worried about this. And even if you were to like rocket the bomb tower, we could still always just night log to finish off most of the E-Giant, so looking pretty good right here. And I think we should be able to cycle back to another bomb tower as needed, but our other bomb tower actually is going to stay alive with like 1 HP, so we're just going to try to counter this with a Queen here, and going to do a pretty good job right here as well. So yeah, really easy so far. You can see E-Giant is pretty easy, even though they do have a lot of hog counters. You can always just like get EQ chip damage, and sometimes you'll get like an incidental hog hit, or maybe even a bit of Queen chip damage, so definitely quite a few ways to break through. But when you're facing E-Giant, always make sure to like go with high Queens if possible, just so that they don't lightning your tower and Queen. But right here I'm not really worried about it, because I know that we already pretty much won, so if you were to rocket our Queen, we would still be in quite a good place. So yeah, and we did always cycle the bomb tower early, so even if you were to spell down this one, we already have another, so yeah, gonna be a really easy win here. I think we just need like 2 logs and an earthquake, so he's gonna defend here, but just gonna cycle back quickly. And yeah, you should have pretty easy wins against E-Giant, but it does take a bit of practice to beat it consistently with your placements and stuff. Hopping in the next match here, we're gonna be up against this guy, and I think he does play Graveyard usually, sometimes some bridge spam decks, so I'm gonna try to see what version he's using. And by the way guys, I feel like the Queen version of Hog EQ is a bit better right now, but I just made this guide for the Firecracker version because I feel like Firecracker is a lot better overall. Like, Queen is just kind of good right now because the Queen itself is just so broken, but it's very likely that the Queen will get a nerf pretty soon, so not really worth it to like spend a ton of time on unless you just want to get like some quick wins with it, to be honest with you guys. Alright, and yeah, you guys can always come back to this video like even far in the future, because it should always be pretty helpful, even though the meta does change sometimes. I feel like the matchups you want to play will still kind of stay with like a similar strategy, so it should always be a good thing to come back to for you guys. Alright, so I think we're actually going to be up against Mega Knight right here. He is going to go with the Ram Rider kind of aggressively, and I was kind of gonna hope to activate King Tower there, but he does actually get his bandit to die somehow by our Tesla, so not gonna be able to do it. But we already had a pretty good lead right now, so quite good here. And you know, as I always say against Mega Knight, it's always a bit more of a sketchy matchup, but then when you activate your King Tower off of like a bandit or something, it becomes really easy on defense, I feel like, and you just have to make sure that you keep up with the EQ chip damage. And I actually went with that Hog Rider there, predicting that he would poison at the same time, so he had a bit of a delayed response to our Hog Rider, I feel like, and gonna get 1 hog hit there. Even though it isn't in the lane we're going for, it's still gonna make it so that he's gonna have to worry about his left tower later on, and he can't just always go with the Mega Knight in the back same lane and never worry about getting punished or anything. And it is also really nice to have Ice Spirit in this deck to help you kill the Ram Riders quite a lot easier. I'm actually just going to go with a kind of strange looking Valkyrie here. I'm actually going to do it so that I can activate King Tower off of this bandit. So you can either use Skeletons plus Ice Spirit or Firecracker to activate, but you can also use Firecracker and Ice Spirit just themselves to activate. So going to be a really nice King activation here. I'm going to Earthquake in the left lane right now. I kind of want to want to start going opposite lane here, and we're pretty even on damage in both sides, so I think it should be pretty fine here. I'm just going to go with the Hog as well, just so that we kind of split up his push, and he's also going to poison at the exact same time, so what you guys should be noticing here is that I'm always going in with the Hogs right as he's spending a ton of Elixir, like he's spending these poisons right at the same time as I'm going for these Hogs, so he never has enough to defend them fully, and they're always seeming to like sneak in a couple hits or something like that, so that's kind of how you want to get your damage in this matchup, but excuse my voice, but you always want to get your damage in these matchups by kind of EQ cycling, but then sometimes those incidental Hogs will get a hit, and that's really nice for you whenever that happens. And sometimes they do run lightning as well, but if they're running lightning, you definitely want to try to stack your Teslas before your other units once you see their big pushes coming, but if they do have poison, then you don't really have to worry about getting an early Tesla, because they can't really kill it too easily anyways. And just going to go with another Hog Rider here. It's probably going to be almost GG. Firecracker is going to get a bit of splash damage as well, and you can kind of just see like the King Tower helping out on defense is really just like denying him any chance to break through, and we pretty much just need a few more Hog Riders or a few more Earthquakes, and yeah, that's probably going to be almost it. I think we need like 2 more Logs and an Earthquake, maybe like 2 more Earthquakes I think to win this one, but yeah, looking pretty good right here. As long as you don't let like an Inferno Dragon break through or something, you should be looking pretty good, but gonna be pretty careful here against this Inferno Dragon. I had bad experiences with them before, so don't want to take any chances here, and gonna Earthquake right now. I think we just need 1 more Earthquake, and he's probably gonna give up right here, so that's gonna be a pretty easy win against Mega Knight, which I know a lot of you guys have a lot of problems with. Alright, in the next match here, we're gonna be up against this guy. I have no idea what he's playing, so just gonna start out with the Hog Rider here. I didn't really go over the best starting plays, but it's always good to go with like Hog Rider first play, unless you know they have the heavy punish deck, and also Skeletons, Log, Ice Spirit, and all of that stuff are good first plays. But sometimes if you have like Valkyrie, Tesla, Firecracker, and Earthquake, I would suggest just going with the Earthquake first play, because it's never really worth it to cycle your Valkyrie or Firecracker, because if they have like a Golem or Lava Hound deck, you're kind of screwed, so want to make sure that you're saving your best defensive cards. Alright, so this is probably going to be some type of graveyard deck. Yeah, he's going to have Bowler, so it's probably going to be like Giant Graveyard, I think. It could also be Graveyard with Skeleton King or something, but yeah, it's always good to go with defensive Earthquakes against Graveyard, and it's always good to go with your Skeletons in that placement on the inner corner of the tower. That way it kind of will like pick off those RNG Skeletons that tend to spawn right next to the tower sometimes, so you have to always make sure that you're having the perfect placement with those Skeletons. And Ice Spirit's actually going to jump, so our Hog is going to get a ton of damage right there, and honestly looking super good here. This is a really difficult matchup actually when you don't have Archer Queen, because they can just arrow your Firecracker away every time, but with that Ice Spirit, it could be looking pretty good here for us. I think we have a good chance to win, but the Bowler can be a bit annoying when they stack it up in the same lane as you go. So against Graveyard, it really depends on the version, like what you want to do, but I guess I'll talk a bit about Splash Yard, since that probably is the most popular Graveyard deck right now. When you're facing Splash Yard, it's always really good to kind of have a bit of field control with your Firecrackers, but they can always poison your Firecrackers, so what you want to do is you want to try to get like Firecrackers a little bit higher up so they can't poison both your tower and your Firecracker, and yeah, you kind of just want to never give them any chance to get spell damage, but you also want to always get value out of those Firecrackers, like kind of controlling the field a bit, and you sometimes can get like high Teslas off, kind of blocking their baby dragons from crossing the bridge. And against Giant Graveyard, you also kind of just want to stack your Firecrackers. You don't really have to worry about spacing them out though from the tower, because it's not really possible since they have arrows which have like such a big radius, so you can just go with your Firecrackers next to the tower, and what you want to do is you just want to bait out the arrows with your first Firecracker, then you want to quickly cycle back to a second one, and then they won't really have anything in cycle to stop it, so yeah, they can get a lot of value in these matchups, and Hog is actually going to somehow score a hit there, so that's why I love playing Hog. I feel like you will always get those extra hits that are just like kind of undeserved. I don't really know why my Hog actually got that hit, but I'll take it, and we just need an EQ plus Log here. Always important to remember your spell damage is at top ladder. When you have a max card, they we'll do 395 damage with the Earthquake plus Log on their tower. Alright, in the next game here, we're going to be on our mid-ladder account, actually. Well, not our lower mid-ladder account, but it's going to be at around, like, 7,000 trophies right here on my kind of alternate account. And looks like we are going to go against Lava first play here, so going to be very interesting here. As against, like, most beatdown decks, you always like to cycle your Firecracker first, so that way if they spell the first one down, you can always get back to another one, but didn't really have the stuff I would have preferred in cycle, so just gonna go with the late Tesla here. He might have Fireball bait with his Lava deck, like the one with Skeleton Dragons and Miner and stuff, but I'm not really too sure, because I never really see them running it with Cage anymore. It's usually Tombstone, but Cage might actually be a little bit harder than Tombstone is, because you can't just like Earthquake it away as easily, because the Goblin Ball will still be alive after that. Looks like he does actually have Balloon here, so against Lava Loon, you do kind of want to have a similar strategy as against like most Lava decks. You kind of just want to cycle your Firecracker first, then you want to pressure, you want to like apply a bit of pressure with like your Hog Rider or maybe Valkyrie, and then if they spell down your first Firecracker, you can get back to another one. And then when you're against Lava Hound, it's also good to save your Tesla usually. Like sometimes you can cycle your Tesla early so that you can get back to another one quickly, but it can also be a good idea to like let them go with the Lava Hound and then go with a Balloon after that. And then you can kind of like separate their Balloon from their Lava Hound and have your Tesla target the Balloon instead of the Lava Hound, and then also your tower on the opposite side should help out a bit. So that's going to be really good for you if you can get that done, and you should be able to get quite a bit of damage and also defend pretty flawlessly. Alright, so I'm going to actually show it right here. So yeah, if you go with this Tesla in this late placement, it is going to pull the Balloon, but the Lava Hound won't go for the Tesla or like block it, so it is pretty helpful, and the tower on the opposite lane is also going to kind of chip it down a bit. And this guy does even have arrows, so honestly a pretty hard matchup, but we kind of made it look quite easy right here. I'm not sure if he can defend too well, but just going to go with the Tesla right here. And even when you do waste your Tesla, like if you have to use your Tesla like kind of in a pinch sometimes, it's not even too bad usually, because you can still defend the Balloons usually with like a Firecracker plus Ice Spirit and take no damage. But it does depend if they have like arrows or not in cycle or like some spell. But we were able to cycle back to another Firecracker there, and I mean another Tesla right there, so probably going to be GG. He's kind of just desperately spamming at the river, but I don't think he's really going to be able to break through or anything. And yeah, and by the way guys, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this video, because it is going to definitely take a very long time for me to finish this video, because it is going to be one of the first, I think, nearly an hour-long video on the channel. So let me know what you guys think of it, and if you like more of these style of videos in the future. In the next match here, we're going to be up against this guy, and I'm pretty sure he is a Giant Double Prince player, so going to be pretty interesting here. And we are running the Queen version once again. I won't use it for most of my games, but just kind of felt like using it once again here. But honestly, it shouldn't really change too much in this matchup. I feel like you're going to play it in the same way with Queen as you would with Firecracker pretty much. The only nice thing about Queen is that when they try to go with the Miner on your Queen, you can just pop the invisibility, so it's kind of hard for them to kill the Queen, whereas against Firecracker they can just Miner it, and you can't really protect it usually, because you usually have to save your Knight for their princes, so you can't really use the Knight on the Miner to protect your Firecracker. But sometimes if you're in the right position you can, so always really nice when you do end up predicting it. And we're actually going to align the Prince perfectly there, so the Bomb Tower is going to splash it a bit, but he is going to zap as well, so we're going to have to use our Skeletons here. But yeah, pretty perfect defense so far. You usually want to go opposite lane of Giant Double Prince when you're using Hog Rider, but I might just go same lane as him right here, because we already kind of got like some damage on the right lane, so not really worth it to switch lanes, to be honest, if you already got a lot of damage. That's the one thing that I will say, even though it is always better to go opposite lane with Hog Rider. If you have got a lot of damage in one lane, it's usually better to just stick to that lane instead of just always trying to go in the opposite lane. Alright, so he's going to Dark Prince early there, but just going to pop the Queen ability. It's always important to use your ability on troops rather than always trying to save it, because sometimes if you try to save your Queen ability too much, it will just end up dying before you really get much value out of it. Alright, and when you're playing Firecracker in this matchup, you kind of just want to cycle your Firecrackers pretty early. So when they Giant in the back, if I had Firecracker here, I would have went for it in the back, but we are running the Queen version here, but defense is pretty similar. You kind of just want to go with Hogs sometimes, because they can't really ever stop it without taking at least one shot, unless they just like overspend a lot with at least like 7 Elixir, unlike the E's Mega Minion. But you do also want to be like a little bit careful, because sometimes if you do overcommit with your Hog Rider, it can be a bit dangerous on defense. You always want to make sure that you're applying good pressure with the Hog Riders, but you're not overcommitting or anything. Otherwise, they can usually kind of just overwhelm you over time. But yeah, we're in a really good spot right here. Got a lot of hog chip damage, and you can cycle EQs sometimes. It's not always good to cycle EQs too aggressively, but just gonna cycle a few right here just to kind of fix our cycle. That's kind of what we're trying to do here. And even though his princes can be tricky to respond to, we're kind of just making sure that we're luring all of his troops into the middle, because when you're facing giant double prince, it's really good to just lure everything to the middle and then kind of have both of your towers targeting everything and dealing a ton of damage to each stuff, because even though sometimes your defenses can't be perfect, once you have all that stuff going in the middle, it becomes way easier to defend even without all the perfect cards in hand. So that's going to be GG right here. Hopping in the next match, we're going to be on our mid-ladder account again, and we're facing this guy, so not sure what any of these guys are running. Might be a bit weird playing at mid-ladder. We're just going to see what he decides to use here. So he's going to have Baby Dragon and Tornado, so could be a few things here. And he's going to go with a Lumberjack at the river, so it actually might be Lumberloon here, or it could also be Golem or something. But you guys probably won't see this unless it is Lumberloon, because we did already have the Golem match against my friend earlier. So just going to cycle a EQ right here. Don't really want to waste our Firecracker, because if he's using a Golem deck or a Balloon deck, we always want to save our Firecracker to stop those big pushes. And he's going to have Bowlers, so most likely going to be Lumberloon here, but he does also have Skeleton Army, so I'm not really sure exactly what he's running. It could just be some weird mid-ladder deck also. We are a bit higher than mid-ladder at this point, but some people do still use kind of weird decks, so you never really know for sure what you're going to face. And by the way, guys, you can actually activate King Tower by a Baby Dragon. Like, if you go with split skeletons in the middle, right, as the Baby Dragon crosses the river, then you go with the Firecracker right in front of your King Tower. It actually will fully counter the Baby Dragon, and also will activate your King Tower, so it can be super helpful against Graveyard, but it only will work if they play their Baby Dragon behind the King Tower. So definitely a really good tip to know, though, if you ever come in this situation where they have a Baby Dragon in that position and you do have the right cards and cycle to activate. Alright, so I feel like this matchup should actually be quite a bit better after the Balloon nerf, because the Tesla will always take 2 shots for the Balloon to kill, so we don't really need to pre-cycle our Teslas that much. Like, before I would always cycle one Tesla early, then get back to another one, but we could probably still do it here, but and I'm actually going to go for it here, because he does have a Bowler down, but you don't really need it as much, and it's a lot safer in single Elixir when you can rely on that Tesla to always soak up 2 shots. And honestly, just going to let this Firecracker die here. Not really worth it to protect it too much, otherwise it would kind of block up the bridge and allow him to build up a super big push. So yeah, just gonna let stuff do their thing. And he does go with the NATO there, actually, so we can probably go with the Hog right here, and he's gonna Balloon at the same time, also Inferno Dragon, but not really gonna do too much for him. And he will actually scar me on our Hog Rider, but it is still gonna get one hit because he kind of delayed on it. So honestly, a pretty good spot here, and I'm not even sure what he replaced Skeleton Army for. I think he might not have Barb Barrel in his deck, so I guess that's a bit helpful for us here, because he can't really kill our Firecracker without a Barb Barrel. But Bowler is sometimes still annoying, though, because it kind of just, like, splashes through everything, I feel like. And yeah, just gonna cycle another Firecracker here, and even though we don't have, like, the best air defense, we can kind of just, like, stack these Firecrackers and defend pretty well. But he does have a pretty big push coming here. Not even sure if we can defend perfectly, but especially with the Balloon nerf, it is actually okay to take a Balloon hit sometimes when you're facing Balloon decks, because it's not the end of the world as long as you make sure that you don't take more than that, and you make sure that you can still catch up in damage. And he actually doesn't get any damage right there, surprisingly, kind of just because of the Balloon nerf, I would say. But yeah, it should be not too hard to defend his push. Sometimes they do, like, try to line your Valkyrie up with the tower, but he's not really going to be able to do it successfully there. The skeleton actually will allow it to get a shot on the tower, but I'm not too worried about eating some damage here, just as long as I can make sure that I don't lose my entire tower, because he doesn't have like a big spell or something, so should be pretty good right here. Okay, he's actually going to go for a freeze too, so not too bad for us though. Gonna defend everything pretty easily, and Firecracker is actually going to live, and now we won't have Tornado in cycle for our Hog Rider, but we did place the Earthquake a little bit late, so not going to get too much damage here. But yeah, basically what you want to do here is just like stack Firecrackers, get a bit of chip damage, but you want to make sure not to be too aggressive with your Firecrackers, otherwise they can kind of punish you other lane, and you also want to make sure that you're not too aggressive with your Hog Riders, otherwise they can also build up super big pushes, even bigger than the ones here, so yeah, just want to make sure you're playing it safe and always having the right cards in cycle, and sometimes you can pre-place Teslas and stuff so that you can block up both lanes, but that is going to be GG. Alright, so guys, as we hop in the next game here, I just want to give a couple of general tips with Hog EQ. So when you're playing Hog EQ, it's always good to space out your units. So like when you're defending a giant push or something, you always want to make sure to space out your Tesla from your Firecracker, and it is also good to like not be too aggressive with your Hog in some matchups. It's better to just like EQ cycle sometimes, so just know that you don't always have to get a ton of Hog hits. Sometimes you can just win mostly by EQ damage, so it is still good to Hog just to like apply pressure and stuff, but in some matchups you can't really expect to get almost any Hog damage. Alright, we're going to be up against this guy here, and I'm pretty sure he does play E-Golem, so will be a pretty interesting matchup. Honestly, E-Golem can seem like a little bit weird at first since you don't have like a big spell like a Fireball or Lightning, but I feel like once you kind of get the hang of the match, it actually becomes a lot easier to beat, because you kind of learn how to cycle your cards properly and stuff. Alright, and we did actually waste our EQ even though I knew he had Barb Hut, because I knew that he would just have to spend it on our Hog anyways, and also Firecracker is really good against Barb Hut, so even if you do waste your EQ, you should be looking pretty fine here. I'm not sure if you guys face these E-Golem versions mostly, or like some other mid-ladder versions, like where they just go with E-Golem first play every game, but should be played in kind of a similar way. You kind of want to, I mean, especially against the ones in mid-ladder where they E-Golem first play, you want to be really careful with cycling your Firecracker, but against this guy here, I'm not really worried to cycle it, because I know that we can always cycle back to more of them, and especially before it's double Elixir, I'm not really scared to cycle them, but we're going to take most of his tower here, and he's going to go with a big E-Golem in the back, and you know, they usually just have that one massive push that you just have to make sure that you defend perfectly, and yeah, just gonna set up a Firecracker here, and against E-Golem, it's always good to kind of, like, sometimes you can even EQ or, like, log back their E-Golem, so that way your troops or, like, towers will start targeting, like, the support units. So, like, the Tesla actually is gonna kill the E-Drag there, so super good for us that the E-Drag is dead, because I feel like the E-Drag is kind of the most annoying part here. And I'm going to give this guy a bit of BM, by the way, guys, sorry for that, but he did actually snipe me earlier. He used like a Mega Knight deck, even though he never plays Mega Knight, just to like snipe me when I played Royal Hogs once, so that's kind of why I'm BMing him a lot. But yeah, as you can see, like a super easy win here against E-Golem, as long as you make sure to save your Firecrackers, especially in double Elixir, but sometimes you can kind of just like use them to have field control, but yeah, I never really BM'd someone this much, but this guy's an exception, a special exception, and yeah, make sure to always BM E-Golem players, because it betters the planet, and that's going to be GG. Alright, in the next game here, we're going to be facing this guy, and yeah, not sure what he's playing here. Probably just going to start out with an EQ. It sometimes is a bit safer to start out with like skeletons or something than an EQ, but I'm not really too worried about it right here. I know that even if he has like, you know, something I could use Earthquake against, I can always just have like other responses to it, so not the end of the world here. And looks like he will have a Miner Wallbreaker deck, so gonna be pretty interesting right here, even though, okay, I was actually thinking he would have the version with like Bomb Tower and stuff, but he actually does have Musketeer here, so might actually be a Mega Knight deck with Wallbreakers and Miner, but should be pretty interesting. Hopefully he doesn't have arrows, because sometimes they do run like arrows and Prince, which does make it kind of difficult, but if he doesn't have those, it should be pretty fine here. And honestly, the best thing to do is just to activate your King Tower as soon as possible against like a Mega Knight or something, but there are definitely like a few special tricks you can do against it. I'm just going to go with the Hog right there, and it is going to get one hit, but he is going to get the MK down. I'm just going to set up a Firecracker first, just in case he goes for the bats, and looks like he does go for it right there, but looking pretty okay here. I think we might have to actually eat those Wallbreakers, unfortunately, but we might be able to activate our King Tower here, so even though we did take a ton of damage, it's actually kind of worth it to eat a lot of damage sometimes for the King activation, and it should help us out on defense a lot later. And also the nice thing is that he got a lot of damage in the opposite lane of us, so when he goes for those MK pushes, he won't really be able to deny the same lane that we're going in, so should be pretty good for us here actually. And yeah, honestly, it is kind of hard to defend when you don't have your King Tower activated, because they do have like the potential to build up like super big Mega Knight Prince pushes, which can just be really hard to defend, especially when they snipe your Firecracker with like a Miner or something, and support it with like bats and stuff. So you do want to, you know, get that King activated as early as possible, then it should help stuff out quite a lot. And yeah, as you can see, the bats are kind of annoying there. Like, we always have to waste a Firecracker on it, and oftentimes the Firecracker misses a couple bats, so not the best for us here, but just gonna go with the Hog Rider since he went with the Prince in the other lane, so we're kind of like splitting up his push here, and Hog is actually gonna get one hit too, so looking quite good right here. I feel like the best thing you can do is split up their push a lot, that way they can't really have that big Mega Knight Prince push, because even though you have like Valkyrie and a lot of distraction cards, once they have like a Prince behind a Mega Knight, it just does like way too much damage for you to be able to defend. And looks like he is gonna get one wall breaker on the tower, but Hog is gonna get a couple shots, and I think we just need like a couple earthquakes and a couple logs or something, and that probably will be GG here pretty shortly. It seemed like a pretty easy win, but yeah, as long as you make sure you have solid defense and you're going opposite lane and doing well, it can always be a pretty easy win against these types of decks. And you can see that we're making sure to always go with our Hog Riders at the perfect times. Like, we never really overcommitted with a Hog Rider when you couldn't defend well, so that is going to be game. Hopping in the next match here, we're going to be up against this guy. So probably just going to start out with an Ice Spirit at the river here. We could go with an Earthquake, but Ice Spirit should be a little bit safer. I'm going to apply a bit of pressure. So he is going to log right here. I'm just going to go with the Hog and... Okay, so it looks like we will be facing Mortar here. So against Mortar, honestly, the best play you can do is what we just did right there. When they... So usually, like, if they don't know you have Earthquake at least, they will usually go with like the high Mortar against your first Hog, and you can always activate King Tower off of it using a perfectly timed set of skeletons, which is always really good, honestly, because they do often have like Miner with their Mortar deck, so the Miner becomes a lot more ineffective once you have that King Tower up. And sometimes they do have Minion Horde and stuff, so you do have to be a bit careful about that. And he's going to go with the high Skarmy there. We're going to get an EQ down a little bit late, but honestly, the kind of annoying thing about Skarmy is that even when you get an EQ off on it, it's still going to kill most of your Hog Rider before you can actually get it down, unless you predict the Skarmy. So, didn't really want to predict it, because if you went with like a Minion Horde or something, it would have been pretty bad for us spending that much Elixir, but still a pretty good lead so far. And I'm not even sure if he does have Minion Horde, because sometimes they run it with different cards in here, but should be pretty similarly played either way. Against Mortar, it's kind of a bit self-explanatory, but there are quite a few secret tips and tricks that you can use. So it looks like he's going to go for a Mortar here. I could have just Tesla'd right away, but I wanted to go with the Hog Rider there just to distract the Mortar, but also kind of make it so like if you went for like a prediction unit to block a Tesla, it wouldn't have really caught anything. Alright, and you do sometimes have to be careful of their Mortars on offense, because even though you do have the Earthquake and stuff, Mortars can actually be kind of hard to stop sometimes still. I mean, they do usually have to save it for your Hog Rider, but sometimes offensive Mortars are annoying, because you only really have like a Tesla to stop it, but sometimes they can just like block it with like a Skeleton King or something, so you do have to be a bit careful about them sometimes. Usually it's always good to go with like a unit in the middle to distract the Mortar before you go with the Tesla or something. That way they will most likely like spend some unit to distract your stuff without being able to like predict your Tesla right away. And he's going to go for a Miner push here, but Firecracker should clean up most of the skeletons, and he does go with the high Mortar here, but Earthquake going to clean it up pretty nicely here. The Dart Goblins are being like a little bit difficult to deal with, but You can kind of just like keep up with the Mortar player's chip damage just by Earthquake cycling, even though you don't have like a consistent way to break through, I feel like, but yeah, pretty good usually. And he is gonna go with the late Mortar there, so we might be able to outcycle him as well. I'm not really focused on outcycling him though, I'm kind of just trying to defend well and then get Earthquake chip damage, because I know we don't really need to outcycle him too much to beat him. We are actually gonna predict the Skarmy there for once, and Hog actually not going to get any hits just because of the Dart Goblin being kind of OP after the buff sometimes, it feels like. And it is really nice to have Ice Spirit in this deck over Fire Spirit as well to catch like miners and all of that stuff. So it definitely does have quite a few, or there definitely are quite a few benefits of using Ice Spirit here. And by the way guys, like sometimes I see a lot of cycle players like just using like their skeletons just to like cycle back to more stuff, but sometimes it's actually good to like save your skeletons when you're facing like a miner Mortar deck. That way you can always have your skeletons to counter their miner, because you never really want to use your Valkyrie against a miner unless you have to, so it's pretty good to just like save those skeletons every time, so you have like a cheap and kind of effective way to deal with it each time. Alright, so we might be able to outcycle him here pretty soon. I'm just gonna go with a prediction log as well. I know it might not hit his Skarmy or something, but also we're just gonna chip at his tower, so should work out pretty well for us here as well. And as you can see, like his miners aren't really getting any value either after our King Tower got activated. They're getting like a bit of chip damage sometimes, but not really anything major compared to like our EQs and Hog hits. And usually they will fully defend your Hog Riders, especially when they have their King Tower activated, but usually at some point you can get like a Hog hit or two, and you will always get like EQ chip damage over the course of the game. So even if you don't have like the best start or like a lot of Hog hits at first, don't really worry about it. Just keep playing like the slow game, and yeah, that is going to be game against Mortar, which is usually a pretty easy win, to be honest. Alright, in the next game here, we're going to be against this guy. So most of these games are going to be on my alternate ladder account right now, but still pretty decent players, I feel like. Not too low in trophies, not too high either, but probably around the range, or maybe even a bit above where most of you guys are, so should be pretty good here. And he's going to have Ghost plus Fireball here, so probably either going to be Mega Knight or Pekka, either like a weird Mega Knight deck or just like the classic Pekka deck, I think. And yeah, honestly you kind of play against most of the bridge spam decks in the same way, where you're trying to just get that King Tower activated as early as possible, but there are quite a few, I don't know, kind of like secret tips that can help you quite a lot. Alright, so his Battle Ram actually might get a bit of chip damage here, unfortunately, but he does have the Bandit, so I think we can actually activate our King Tower. So as you can see, it's like really good to always know whenever you can activate your King Tower. It's gonna just help out so much on defense against bridge spam decks. Then it kind of just allows you to focus the rest of the game on just like getting chip damage on their towers with like EQs and Hogs and stuff like that, rather than always like, I don't know, like barely defending. Alright, and yeah, it is going to be Pekka, I'm pretty sure. He didn't use it yet, but I don't really see what else it might be. Yeah, he's going to go for the late Pekka right here, but the only annoying thing in this matchup is kind of the Magic Archer. So when you're facing Pekka and they go with like a Ghost in the back, you never really want to go with like a Valkyrie in the back same lane. Otherwise they can usually just go with the Magic Archer and just take like half of your tower. So it usually is better to just either go with like a Earthquake or like a Hog, and then or maybe even like a log or something, then go with like a Firecracker in the back and skeletons to surround the Ghost or whatever, because always sucks when they get a big Magic Archer lock on your tower. Alright, so, and it is always good to set up Firecrackers opposite lane of them, because we'll always either force out a Fireball or just make them in a bit of like a panicked situation where they kind of have to be worrying about it. And I did go with the Valkyrie Hog there. Normally I don't really go for it, but I knew that he was not having like a Pekka or something in cycle, so I wasn't really afraid of him getting like a really easy counter to it, and it is going to work out pretty well for us. We did get one Hog hit, and yeah, it took like most of his tower at this point. And it is important to note that EQ plus log does kill Magic Archer, because sometimes Magic Archer can be so annoying that you might want to just like Earthquake log it off the board instead of just like letting it do its thing. So yeah, that is a nice thing to note. And also 2 logs does kill a Magic Archer, so you kind of just want to know like what you need to kill it. And also a log plus 1 Firecracker shot does kill it, and this is probably going to be game right here. Hog is going to sneak through, and you can see we're always getting like those sneaky Hog hits somehow. We're just defending super well with all our cheap cards, so that will be game. In the next match, you're going to be facing this guy, and I am pretty sure that he does usually play Royal Giant, so could probably be a Royal Giant versus Hog matchup, which is honestly a pretty fun matchup. I feel like it's quite a good matchup for Hog most of the time, depending on their spells and stuff, but always kind of a simple matchup to play. You always kind of just want to like go with Hogs once in a while, get a bit of chip damage, and then like kind of Earthquake their tower sometimes, and also just have the good defense with your Firecracker and all of that stuff. So he does go with the RG in the back. It may seem really aggressive by him, but he probably already knows what deck I'm playing, so probably that's why he's not really scared to go with it. And sometimes on their first RG, it is good to defend the first RG without even like a Tesla, sometimes just with like Valkyrie Log and a Firecracker, but he did go with the Skeleton King as well, so that's why I went with the Tesla still, and looks like he will go with the Lightning, but Valkyrie just has so much HP that it's going to tank for the Hog and allow it to get one hit, so already off to a super good start. And you usually do have a good early lead against RG, just because when they activate against your Hog using their Fisherman, it does always get one hit before it can pull it, unless they go with like a E-Spirit or a Log to block the Hog from getting a shot, so you're usually always going to be in a pretty good spot. And sometimes it is good to save your Valkyrie for their Skeleton King, or like, I know a lot of you guys are lower in trophy, so you might not be facing much Skeleton King, but it's always good to either save your Valkyrie for their like Dark Prince or Skeleton King, kind of whichever one they're running, but in this case I'm not really too worried about saving it, because the Skeleton King is only really like difficult to defend if the ability is fully charged. If their ability is you know, like if they just play the Skeleton King at the bridge without the ability being like fully charged up, then it's not really an issue to deal with, so that's why I'm kind of freely using my Valkyrie right here. So yeah, when they go with the RG in the back, you kind of just want to like set up your two main defensive units, which are the Firecracker and Valkyrie. You kind of just want to like set them up against it, and then you kind of want to usually get a Tesla down as well, but sometimes it is better to save your Tesla so that they don't outcycle you or something. And also it is important to not always go with Hog right as they RG, because sometimes if you go with Hog right as they RG, they can just like Fisherman on it, and then it will pull it to the King Tower usually, then it will also pull your Valkyrie that you used on defense, but not really worried about it here, because we use the Hog quite a bit later, so the Fisherman isn't going to pull the Valkyries on time, and it's just going to pull it now, but not going to allow his RG to get anywhere, because it's already dead or it's already been dead for a while, so yeah, looking pretty good right here. He doesn't have Fisherman in cycle, so, oh, never mind, he does have it. Wasn't really paying attention right there, but yeah, Hog is actually going to get one shot there still. Even when they Fisherman your Hog, it will always get one hit, unless they do like a very specific positioning, but oftentimes it will get one shot, because they don't want to go with like a high Fisherman, otherwise you can probably like block it with like Skeletons or like a Ice Spirit, so it's kind of risky for them to go for like a differently placed Fisherman that could fully counter the Hog. Looks like his RG will survive with a bit of HP. Unfortunately, after the Tesla nerf, the matchup did get a bit worse, because RG kind of does wreck Tesla sometimes, I feel like. I mean, Tesla's not bad against RG, but it's not that good either, so it is a bit more sketchy, but gonna defend pretty well right there anyways. Alright, and I don't really want to Hog here, because he does have Tombstone, so just gonna focus on defense first. And I know we just need like a couple Earthquakes and a couple Logs here to win, so should be pretty okay. He's gonna go with a pretty well played Skeleton ability, or Skeleton King ability, but as you can see, we're always like taking our chances well, and he did actually have to spend the Tombstone as well, otherwise the Hog would have gotten one shot, so yeah, looking pretty good here. And by the way, against RG, you never really want to go with Valkyrie Hog unless it's like near the end of the game already and they just like spend quite a lot of Elixir and you know they can't defend well. Usually it's just good to go with like a lone Hog, because it will always force them to spend like a Fisherman and usually something else unless they go with like the high Fisherman, but then that's just like way too risky for them, so yeah, just be a bit patient against RG and focus on defense first. So that will be game right there. In the next match here, I think we're going to be facing an Xbow player, so we do actually have the Queen version of Hog this time once again, but it is pretty much exactly the same with Queen and Firecracker when you're facing an Xbow deck, so it shouldn't really matter too much. And Xbow is actually a pretty easy matchup with Hog EQ, but I know a few of you guys were saying that you actually somehow were losing to Xbow quite a lot, so even though it is an easy matchup, I guess it's still going to be good to go over. And honestly, even when they have Xbow, you shouldn't be afraid to cycle your EQs on the tower, because you can always just go with like a Knight plus Bomb Tower against against their Xbow, and they should be able to defend it pretty well most of the time. He might try to like log our bomb tower or something as well to kill it quicker, but okay, looks like he actually doesn't go for it here. I guess he didn't have it in cycle or something, so yeah, pretty fine here. And we are going to go with the Hog there just to like tank the final bits of the Xbow, but yeah, looking pretty good here. And we do actually get the log off before he went with the ability, so yeah, already a super good start just like that. And you will usually get most of your damage just from Earthquakes, because they will defend most of your Hogs pretty much perfectly if they play well enough at least, so you kind of just want to like chip away with your Earthquakes and your logs, and then you can defend most of their Xbows either with the Earthquake, Knight plus log, or with just a Knight bomb tower most of the time. So yeah, and sometimes you can apply pressure with your Archer Queen as well, so they can't really always save their Knight to I don't know, like defend their Xbow. And I didn't even go with the Queen ability there. I could have went for it, but it wouldn't really make too much sense because it would have already been pretty much dead anyways and not really get any damage, or like maybe one shot at most, so it wouldn't really help too much. Sometimes when you have like a 1 HP Queen, it's not even worth it to go for the ability, because then they just will still barely take any damage, and also it won't really help your cycle, because it will kind of like you could have like spent that 1 elixir on like a Fire Spirit or something to get back to another Hog quickly. And I'm actually gonna go with the bomb tower here. We're gonna actually predict his Xbow really nicely, so didn't even mean to go for the bomb tower on his Xbow. I kind of just wanted to use it just against his Queen, but yeah. Alright, so I actually did go with the 1 HP ability there on that Queen, but it is gonna force out the extra Electro Spirit from him, so I guess it's okay for us right here. You don't have to really be too worried about saving your Queen ability, because it does get value like 90% of the time, I feel like, so yeah, never really be too worried to use it. It's never really like that much of a bad play to use your Queen ability. And honestly, the only thing I'm a little bit worried about here is his Archer Queen, because it does make stuff a little bit scary sometimes, because it can kind of just like shred through your Knight sometimes when you try to go with like a Knight plus bomb tower to block their Xbow or something. The Archer Queen does kind of just like tear through it, so you do have to be a little bit cautious of that when you're facing Xbow, but sometimes you can just like Knight opposite lane and then get like a Earthquake plus log on it, and then just defend their Archer Queen as normal with like Ice Spirit and some other stuff. I know I am running the Queen version here, but you don't really play it any differently than normal, so you kind of just want to do the same thing that I did here, except you just go with like a Knight or like a Valkyrie Tesla instead of the Knight bomb tower, and also you can just go with like Firecrackers to apply a bit of pressure. Looks like he's actually going to give up right here, so that is going to be a pretty easy win against Xbow. In the next match here, we're going to be back to the normal Hog EQ deck with Firecracker in it. It looks like we will be facing some type of bait deck most likely here. He's going to go with the barrel for his play, but we didn't have a login cycle, so gonna have to spend our Firecracker. But honestly, it is better to not use your Firecracker if you can help it, because sometimes the Firecracker can be a bit of a pain for you when they activate their King Tower against it, because it does make it quite a lot harder to break through after they get their King Tower up, even though you do have like Earthquake for whatever building they have. And honestly, Logbait isn't as easy of a matchup as it might look, because once they get that King Tower activated, as I was saying, like it becomes a lot harder for your Hogs to break through. Alright. And he's actually going to get a bit of a juke barrel. I'm going to miss one of the goblins, unfortunately, but as long as you kind of block those princesses at the bridge, you should be looking pretty good here. You just have to make sure to apply enough pressure to where they can't really rocket cycle you too well. And yeah. And by the way, guys, let me know what you guys like think of the style of this video as well, because like I did spend quite a while on it. It is going to be a very long video. I know you guys say like for me to not worry about how my commentary is, but this video has been really long, so I probably did make quite a few mistakes in my commentary. I do apologize for that, but hopefully you guys still get like the main point of what I'm trying to say each match. Alright, so we're actually going to activate King Tower against that Electro Spirit. Honestly, it is going to help out a bit, but probably not like too much, but always good to get it anyways, just to be a little bit more kind of safe on defense against Goblin Barrels if you ever get caught out of cycle. Alright, and as you can see here, we're kind of just like cycling EQs on his tower. Basically in single elixir, you don't really ever expect to get hog hits, especially when they have guards in their deck. They have like quite a lot of responses or ways to kill your stuff, but Yeah, he's going to go with a Rocky here, so I'm just going to pressure with a Valkyrie in one lane and a Hog in the other. I was kind of hoping he would go for like a princess at the bridge right at the same time, but looks like he won't go for it here. But we do still have a little bit of a damage lead here, and he's still going to have to waste the guards on the Valkyrie, so looking quite good right here. I'm just going to Hog first and then Log next. That way we cycle back to another Hog as quickly as possible. And he's actually going to be forced to Rocket on defense. And looks like he isn't able to activate his King Tower off of our Firecracker. I guess he didn't have the right cards in cycle, or just didn't want to spend that much Elixir. So looking quite good right here. I do usually prefer to be up a little bit more damage than this at this point in the game, but still quite good here. And he's actually going to go for a Juke Barrel right there. I was kind of not afraid to waste my Log there on his Princess, because I knew that you can also fully counter his Goblin Barrel when you go with a very quick Valkyrie against it, even if it's placed in a normal position. And actually, I'm going to go with the Prediction Log, and we do actually hit his guards right there, so I think that actually will be game there. Sometimes against guards, you can just go with the Log plus Earthquake if you know you can defend the barrel with like a Valkyrie, so yeah, pretty easy win. Alright, so in the next game here, we're going to be facing this guy. And we are going to be using the Firecracker version still. Did have a few games with the Queen version, but mostly Firecracker, because I feel like it is more consistent overall, but Queen is definitely quite good right now as well with Hog EQ, so it felt like both of them could be a bit nice to share. And looks like he's going to have Cannon here and Fire Spirit, so we pretty much already know what deck this is going to be. It's probably going to be Royal Hogs. And I'm just going to go with the high Firecracker here against Royal Hogs. It's always really good to go with the high Firecrackers against their queens. That way you can save your Valkyrie for their Royal Hogs, because you can actually fully defend Royal Hogs using a Valkyrie plus Log if you get the right timing. And even though you can counter the Royal Hogs with Tesla as well, it's a little bit worse with Tesla, because then you kind of will still have to at least spend like some like other elixir on it, like a Log or something, just to make sure the Hoggies don't get a bit of chip damage on your tower. Alright, so we're just gonna Log here, and since we did waste our Log, we probably will have to counter his next set of Royal Hogs with like a Tesla plus Skeletons or something, because we kind of, you kind of don't really ever want to use your Valkyrie against the Royal Hogs unless you also have a Log to pair with it, otherwise the Hoggies will still get so much damage. So yeah, always make sure to have like the right stuff in hand for what they're trying to use. And yeah, so honestly, the Firecracker up here is going to be super good against the Queen. It's going to either force them to use like an early ability, or it is going to just like kill most of it, so it's not really going to do anything on offense. Yeah, we don't even need Skeletons right there. That's just going to be a super easy defense. And he will actually activate King Tower there, but it is a bit late in the game, to be honest. And we already took like most of his, or like half of his tower, so not really too worried about him getting the King activation. The only way that they can really kind of wreck you in this matchup is if they go for the cannon in the opposite lane and then push the Hog with like Skeletons or Fire Spirit, but most of the players that you guys will probably face won't even know how to do that, so you can always just go for like a Hog plus EQ, and then it will always fully counter the cannon as well if they go with it in a normal positioning without comboing it with like a different card as well. Alright, so he's going to get one Hoggy hit there. I didn't really time the Valkyrie plus Log perfectly, but honestly it's still pretty good here. And Hog is actually going to walk straight towards his tower instead of towards the cannon, so yeah, looking super good right here. As long as you're not facing like a professional player, you should be looking pretty good against this matchup. And you can also sometimes just go with like a Skeleton plus Ice, or Skeletons plus Ice Spirit against their Queen, and then sometimes Log as well if needed, because ever since the nerf to the Queen where it goes slower during its ability, you don't really need to worry about its ability nearly as much, I feel like. I'm just going to go with the Valkyrie here just to block the Queen and also kill the Royal Hogs, but he's going to get a bit of chip in the right lane, but yeah, still looking super good for us right here. And yeah, he might just give up here, so thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye!